So we're gonna solve by factoring. And I believe you've done this before, though I am not entirely sure. I've never taught Math 3 or not sure what you've taken before this. So we're going to solve for x, okay? And in order to do that, let's make our quadratic equation equal to 0, not equal to that 4x, negative 4x. So we're going to move this onto that side. And the way we do that is by adding 4x slowly, apparently, onto both sides. And then we'll combine like terms. So x squared doesn't combine with anything. There's no other x squared term to combine with. So it just is itself x squared. Now this middle term, there's a negative 4x and a positive 4x. Since they both have x to the power of 1, they are like terms. So that means we can combine them. Together. So negative 4x plus 4x, that technically gives us 0x. So in this case, they cancel out. It will not always cancel out. We'll do another example later where they don't cancel out. But here we have that they cancel out. And then we bring down this minus 100. And then we say equals 0. So our first step is to make sure our quadratic equation equals 0. We want it to equal 0. So now we have x squared minus 100 equals 0. Okay, I'm going to zoom out so I have more space. I'm going to rewrite it over here. So in this case, we don't have a plain old x term. We have an x squared term. And we have a constant term, just a plain old number. But we don't have any piece that has just plain old x over here. Like if it was plus 5x or something like that. We don't have that. So whenever we see a situation like this, we can ask ourselves, what is a nice square root of 100? What's the square root of 100? What times itself equals 100?
10.
10, good. So then we're going to write that instead of x squared minus 100, it's actually x plus 10 x minus 10. I swear I'm not trying to write so slowly, it's just not sensitive. Okay, so this, let me highlight, this entire piece changed to this. And notice that I wrote it as one of them as a plus 10 and one of them as a minus 10. So if you were to take this x plus 10 and the x minus 10 and FOIL it out, it would end up being x squared minus 100. Okay? Does this look familiar?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, cool. Good, good. So then let me erase my arrows because they're kind of in my way. So if you have something times something equals 0, then that means you can set each of those somethings, each of your parentheses pieces, each of your factors, we can set it equal to 0 to solve for x. So for example, we have the x plus 10 equals 0. And we can also have on the side the x minus 10. Let me draw a line there so it doesn't get mixed up. Equals 0 as well. And the reason for that is if x plus 10 equals 0, then this would be 0 times whatever. 0 times whatever is always going to be 0, so it would help make this statement true. And same for this thing, if x minus 10 was equal to 0, then it would be something times 0, which would still equal 0, which would make our statement true. So that's why you set each of your factors to be equal to 0. And once you do that, we can do subtract 10 to solve for x. And you get x equals negative 10. So that's one of your answers. And then over here, because it's a minus 10, now you have to get rid of it by adding 10. So you get x equals 10. So we have two answers. That is a 10, I swear. Okay, so we have two answers. You got negative 10 and positive 10 in this case. Do you guys have questions on this example? We'll do more examples for sure, but do you have questions on this type of example? Okay. If you end up having questions, we'll have a breakout room later, and then you guys can do that, or ask me there. All right, so we got negative 10 and 10. I think you could just separate it by commas. That's my assumption, so that's what I'm gonna do. 10, comma, negative 10. So the answer, the only time you can use a comma is, okay, if you're trying to make multiple answers, click the plus button to add solutions. All right, great, now I know. So we're not doing this. Oops. So we have 10, and I mean, how do I point? Okay. Do you see right here? That is a plus sign. That's how we're going to add a second answer. Okay, so now I know, now I'm telling you. This is how you add the second answer, that button. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. So I click the plus button, and then it gives me another spot for me to type another answer, and I'll type negative 10 because we had two answers, right? So make sure there's two boxes, 10, negative 10, submit answer, yes, and it gives us a check mark. Any questions on this? Okay, let's do another one. All right, cool. So this is a different type of example. I'm gonna screenshot it. If you guys already know how to do this, feel free to work ahead. I just wanna make sure I give enough examples to those who need it, okay? So once again, we want to make sure our quadratic equals 0. This is not equal to 0, this is equal to negative 5x. So I want to move the negative 5x, I want to bring that piece to the other side. So how do I do that? I do that by adding 5x slowly, apparently. Okay, so we have our x squared. This piece cannot be combined with anything else, so it just stays as x squared. Now the 2x and the 5x, those can be combined because they are like terms. They both have just x. Okay, so there's 2x and there's 5x. You add it together, you get 7x, and that equals 0. Okay, so this time we don't have a constant number. We don't have a plain old number. Everything has some sort of x attached to it. So this is a different type of example than the one we just did. I'm going to rewrite it over here. X squared plus 7x equals 0. So since this type of problem, we have like every single piece has an x of sorts attached to it, I'm going to factor out an x. So if you take out an x, so divide an x from the x squared, you're left with x. And then if you divide out, take out the x from the 7x, you get plus 7. So what just happened is I took this piece and I told you that this is equivalent to this. They're equal. It's just that one is in factored form and one is in standard form. So we have x times x plus 7 equals 0. Any questions up till here? Okay, so what we're going to do is just like last time, we're going to make each factor equal to 0. So our first factor is just the x. Okay, so you can think of it as, if it were in parentheses, it's just x by itself. So we can say x That's the factor. And we're going to set it equal to 0. And then on the other hand, you got x plus 7 as the other factor equals 0. Okay, so let's work on the left-hand side first. Solving for x. Done. It's already solved because x is already by itself. You don't have to add anything or subtract anything. X is just there already. So that one was simple. Now for the right-hand side though, it's x plus 7. So you got to get rid of that 7. Minus 7 minus 7. X equals negative 7. That's our other answer. Do you guys have any questions on this? Okay. I'm going to click done. 0 and negative 7. So remember, we have two answers. So I'm going to click that plus sign. So there's two answers now. We have 0 and negative 7. Submit. And it says we're good. So let's do another problem. Once again, if you already got the hang of this, just work on ahead. It doesn't matter. This is, I'm trying to just make sure I accommodate for everyone's pacing. So if you're already good, feel free to work ahead. Don't mind me. Okay, so for this, I guess, last example, because I want to still give you guys some time. Oh shoot, I just realized class ends in 3 minutes. So I'll write as fast as I can, and if not, I'm going to record this anyways and put it online just so that you guys can have it by tonight, okay? Okay, so what we want to do is make sure this part is 0, so we're going to bring that to the left side, so you can minus x and add 5, just the opposite signs, so minus x, add 5. I'm so sorry that I'm so slow today. I swear my pen is really killing me. X squared, that's minus 10, x, and then that's plus 24 equals 0. So when you're doing something like this, you have to kind of ask yourself, what two numbers can multiply? I'm not going to write the whole thing. Multiply to 24 and add to negative 10. Okay, so you have to think to yourself, what two numbers multiply to 24 and add up to negative 10? And then just off the top of your head, it does take a little bit of guessing and checking. You can write it down, you can do it in your head. I'll get negative 6 and negative 4. If you multiply these two numbers, you'll get 24. If you add them, you'll get negative 10. It does take a bit of guessing and checking, and I will go into more detail next time because there's just 1 minute. Okay, so then that means here are your two factors, x minus 6, x minus 4. I will record something more detailed later, okay? Equals 0. And then finally, x minus 6 equals 0, and x minus 4 equals 0. Solving for x, you get x equals 6 on this side and x equals 4 on that side. I know I totally rushed through that. I apologize. I think I can't write any faster, so I do apologize. I will record something later to make it more in detail, but now class is ended. If you have to go, you have to go, then that's fine. But does anybody have questions? I'm sorry, this one is so writing intensive.